the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by Rubbish Removal Kings, The Corner Post, Flash Conveyancing, Parramatta Leagues Club, Wine Barrels Event Hire Sydney, and Wick Coffee, proud sponsors of the Paracave Podcast. Are you looking for the best rubbish collection Sydney has to offer? Then Rubbish Removal Kings is your top choice. They specialise in household rubbish removal, office rubbish removal, and all types of waste removal or junk removal. Comprehensive services cover all areas of Greater Sydney, including Wollongong in the south, Penrith in the west, the entire Sydney metropolitan area, the CBD, North Sydney, and the Northern Beaches. Choose Rubbish Removal Kings for a rubbish removal near you. Get in touch with them today on 0411 867 719 or contact them through their website www.rubbishremovalkings.com.au. Proud sponsors of the Paracave Podcast.
Let's go! Welcome back to another show. Hi, how are ya? It's a Paracave Podcast coming at ya. Turn it up, feel the vibe, blue and gold. Step inside the cave. Yeah. Easy try in the corner. Here's your host, Troy Warner. Coming to you live from the world famous Paracave.
Hi, how are ya? Welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. This is the NRL Round Review Podcast, round number 3. Can you believe it's already round number 3 done and dusted? Ben from the Corner Post, how you going, mate?
I'm going great, and no, I can't believe it's already round number 3. It felt like it was just last week that it was round number 1. So, I think that's largely because we all said it to ourselves that it was round number 1. But we'll gloss over that one because I think we're a bit happier this week, aren't we?
Well, yes, definitely with Parramatta getting a victory, which we'll get into very quickly later on because we don't want to ruin too much for our Parramatta Dragons review. I got that one right this time, unlike last week. But yeah, I can't believe it's already round number 3. I mean, we were so gearing up for trials not so long ago, and then we were gearing up for the season proper, and now it's already 3 weeks in, and over our shoulders is round number 4. But the action started back in Canberra on Thursday night, and it was torrential conditions down there in the nation's capital. The Bulldogs got the win, 14 points to 10 over the Raiders. This was a hard game to tip going into this game because we didn't know how the Bulldogs would fare after having, say, 2 weeks off, and the Raiders they've played all their games in the rain. So, what were your thoughts on this game at the end of this?
Yeah, personally, for me, I was a little bit frustrated with this one because, like you said, it was a very, very hard game to tip. And just this morning, I took a look at our tipping ladder and realised that I'm very much mid-pack in that one, and I think getting this one right would have really helped me out in that. But no, I did pick the Raiders in this one, but actually about 5 or 10 minutes before the match started, we were sitting out at the pub having a drink and having a bite to eat, watching the game, and a couple of the boys convinced me to jump on the Bulldogs, and I was too late. I couldn't change the pick, so I was a little bit annoyed at that one personally. But look, if I was a Canberra fan right now, I think I would be really frustrated with the position that they're in, given that they won the minor premiership last year. Although us personally, I think we both agreed that last year was a bit of an anomaly for them. It was very much helped out by a very favourable draw and a very, very easy run home for them as well. But since they pretty much got bounced out of the finals in back-to-back weeks, they haven't looked like the same side. So I think it would be, like you said, all their games so far have been played in the rain, but I don't think that's much of an excuse because they're used to pretty poor weather down there in Canberra anyway. So I think they're probably one of the teams this year to start off the season that I really think needs a lot of work between them and Manly, who we'll get into later on as well, potentially. Those two sides really haven't started the year the way that they probably should have, and the way that probably would have been expected of them. And yeah, I don't know how happy I'd be as a Canberra fan right now.
Yeah, look, it's a little bit frustrating, I guess, if you were a Canberra fan. I mean, they do have that new halves combination, which everyone keeps on talking about. Unfortunately, they've had their Englishman, Matty Nicholson. He's gone with a shoulder injury, which is bad news for him because he was one of the fines for the Raiders last year. He's out for an extended period now. But Tamale scored both the tries for the Raiders, and when he scored that second one, his second one in the 73rd minute, I just thought maybe then that the Raiders were going to come back and jag that victory, something like 16-14. But Connor Tracy, he stood in the way of that and made some absolutely crackerjack defensive tackles against the Raiders to stop them from scoring.
Yeah, 100%. And just like you, I also thought that the Raiders were coming back, and it really did look like they were coming back. They were putting a lot of pressure on the Bulldogs. They were getting to the line, but they just couldn't seem to find their way over the line. And that's probably half a credit to a decent Bulldogs defense, probably half a credit to a poor Canberra attack as well, and probably also an extra credit as well for the conditions too. So I don't know coming out of this game, I can't decide if I think the Bulldogs were good or if the Raiders were bad in this game, but I think it's a little bit of both. So, yeah, look, this wasn't the best game to start off the round, and I think potentially when this was scheduled, they may have thought that this was going to be a bit more of a blockbuster, but it actually turned out to be a pretty tame game, pretty timid game. So, I don't know. I sort of look at this one and just try to forget about it, I guess.
I think one of the biggest talking points to come out of this game was Cameron Ciraldo and his injury with the coach's box window smashing on him when he tried to open it because apparently it got a little bit foggy in there with the humidity, the rain and such, and it got a little bit foggy in the coach's box. So he's gone to open it and the thing smashed on him, and he's had to get a couple of stitches after the game. To get that fixed up. And look, Ricky Stewart, he didn't hold back either in the press conference as well about the condition of Canberra Stadium. And maybe...
Yeah, he loves the wins, though. That was just a good excuse for him to have a sook.
Well, yeah, but he was actually on Cameron's side. I mean, talking about the stadium and the conditions of the stadium. Maybe that's why Ricky stands in the rain and on the sideline for every game in case the windows break. Who knows?
Doesn't trust the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? But maybe the powers that be were listening, and who knows? Maybe the taxpayers might have to pay a bit of money to get this ground up to standard.
I'm sure they'll absolutely love that. I'm pretty sure that the consensus there, if I take anything out of Ricky's rant of the week, I think he's got a rant every week. So we might do a segment, Ricky's rant of the week. If I take anything out of Ricky's rant this week, it seems to be that the powers that be that reside over the complex there at Canberra don't seem to really care about the complex all that much. So I don't know how much truth there is to that. I don't know if that's just Ricky trying to get a bit of attention to get a bit of an upgrade into his stadium. But if that is true, I don't really know about that because they've got the Brumbies that play out of that ground as well, and they don't seem to ever have a complaint. So I've been there a couple of times. I'm sure you have as well. It's actually quite a nice ground. There's some things that they do in that stadium there that you don't really see anywhere else. So I wouldn't have thought that there was much to complain about there. And I think Ricky's even got a statue out the front. So I don't know how much I don't know how much I'd poke the bear there, considering that your legacy is all over the place. But that's Ricky for you.
Well, if it gets done, he's a genius. But anyway, we'll move forward to the Friday night blockbusters. Well, the first game certainly before it was Friday, before the game, it did sound like it was going to be a blockbuster. The Roosters having beaten the Rabbitohs in the week before, and the Panthers, well, they were just on fire. 2 wins in a row against the Sharks, and also the Broncos up in Brisbane. So, but it really fizzed out, didn't it? The Roosters got off to the start with the perfect start with Robert Toya going over in the 4th minute, but then after that, it was pretty much the Tom Jenkins show. He scored 4 tries in this game, and Penrith, they roll on, and unfortunately for Parramatta, they've got them this week, so they will be hard to beat. But in this game, they were pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, very, very ominous signs for us next week. Now, I have just purchased my tickets for the match. My partner is a avid Penrith fan, so I think she's going to be quite happy with this one going into actually her birthday week as well. So
Right.
she'll be pretty happy with this one going into her birthday week, having Para coming up. So always a good game between us two. But I don't know if we're going to be able to rise to the level of what we just saw against the Roosters there as well. So I'm a little bit in two minds with this now. I'm sure the Supercoach players who had Thomas Jenkins will be absolutely loving this, but I am not 100% sure if this was a great Penrith performance or if this was a terrible Roosters performance, because I feel like this may have been a little bit of the latter. Now, we know Penrith are a well-oiled machine and they're going to take advantage wherever they can find the chance, but the Roosters to start the year, they've been another one of those sides like Canberra and Manly that just haven't come out of the blocks the way that we sort of expected them to. And it's really starting to show. Like we're 3 weeks into the competition now, and they've really barely fired a shot at anybody besides that Rabbitohs game, which you could also sort of give the excuse there that the Rabbitohs took themselves out of the game when they had that big pause. So I don't know what to think of the Roosters. I really did think that they were a premiership threat and maybe one of the premiership favourites, but they're really not showing it, are they?
Well, not at the moment, and I think one of the big factors for them was their completion rate and them holding the ball. They only completed at 67% compared to the Panthers' 88%. So, as we all have seen in the first 3 weeks of the competition, completions are crucial to going on to winning football matches, and maybe that was potentially one of their faults. They did, however, 19 offloads to 9, but potentially those offloads weren't done at the right time. But the Panthers, as I said before, they just keep on rolling on. They look like they are hungry for this competition. They obviously looked at the grand final last year and thought, well, we should have been there. We have been there the previous 4 years. We want to be there. They started off very slow last year, but this year they've turned it around and they're 3 from 3. What about that try from Brian Toto? He's playing without the headgear now, and maybe that's a thing that he has to do now, play without the headgear, but he credits that try to Mary Fowler for the skill, the double grubber. But yeah, look, you got to praise opposition teams when opposition players do something like that. It was a cracker of a try, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, as a football/soccer fan myself, I really did enjoy that one. That was probably one of the better tries that I've seen this year. I It's such a good skill to be able to pull that out of the bag and then to be able to do it straight away for a second time. Toto's one of those players that really he sort of has a magical moment in him every game. Even when he's sort of having a bit of an off game or a poor game, he can still pull out a bit of magic here and there. He kind of reminds me a lot of a Bevan French from back in the day, where he's sort of, rocks and diamonds, but always had a bit of a magic moment in him here and there. So I do enjoy watching Toto. He's probably one of my favourite players that doesn't play for Parramatta for me to watch in the NRL this year. A couple of stats that I just want to sort of bring up in this game that are probably a bit worrying for Roosters fans or really exciting for Penrith fans. Having a look at the run meters made from Penrith, you've got Dylan Edwards of 167, Tom Jenkins of 189, Paul Alamotti with 179, Casey McLean with 105, Brian Toto with 151, Blaze Talangi with 127, Nathan Cleary with 97, Moses Leota with 88. Then you got Mitch Kenny, who made the one run for 10 metres. He's probably the anomaly in this game. You got Lindsay Smith of 102, Ice with 106, Liam Martin of 161, and Isaiah Yeo of 142. Now, I don't know if you kept tally just then, Troy, but that's only 3 players on the entire roster under 100 metres, with one of them being 3 metres under and the other one being 12 metres under. besides Mitch Kenny, who did his 10 meters. That, if I'm looking at that as a Roosters fan, that's pathetic. That is really, really poor. You should struggle to sort of give up 100 meters to anybody in a game if your defense is on, and they've just given up 100 meters to pretty much every member of the starting 13. That is really, really, really poor.
Yeah, no, that's something definitely that the Roosters are going to have to work on, that's for sure. I mean, it's very rare that you do see pretty much every player in the side, bar a couple that don't get over 100 metres. And look, Mitch Kenny, he probably just didn't have to run because everyone else was running, so he's just passing them the ball. So, um,
It'd be
yeah,
good if there was an assisted run meters stat, wouldn't it?
well,
I reckon Mitch Kenny will be up for about 1,000 meters there.
well, probably. But yeah,
Full
I
kilometer
mean,
of assisted runs.
for some, well, you should calculate his meters run to get to the play the ball to pass those balls. That'd be interesting as well because he'd be anywhere and everywhere. But yeah,
Someone get his GPS tracker out of his jersey.
that's it. That's it. Well, the second game on Friday night, it was the grand final replay. It was played down at Amy Park in Melbourne. It was the Storm taking on the Broncos. Now, the Broncos, 0 from 2. They hadn't won there in 10 years' time. The Storm, they were heavy favourites, having been undefeated so far this season, but the Broncos got the job done, 18 points to 14. It was 14-0 at half-time. You thought the Storm were in control, taking this game to the Broncos' throat and just absolutely going to come out in the second half and just apply that pressure even more. But the Broncos, we saw them do it last year in the final series, come back from behind and get victories, and they did that this time as well. Jordan Ricky scoring a double, Katoni Staggs the other one. Did you see this one happening this way?
Absolutely not.
No?
This is the game that screwed up everybody's tips this week. I guarantee it. To sort of have expected this to happen based on where both the clubs were heading into this game, you've got to be the most staunch of Broncos fans to have tipped them in this one, I reckon. And it was a typical Broncos performance. They were out of the game. They were down by double digits, and then they pulled it back, and they managed to hold out for what will be a pretty famous win for them. Now, watching this game, we were heading out of Combank Stadium at the time that this game was wrapping up. We'd just gone and watched the Wanderers game there. A good mate of mine, KG from RBTV, got us some nice box seats for that match, which was really good of him. So shout out to KG for that one. Got a little early glimpse of Combank Stadium and how it looked before Para got to run out there on the Sunday afternoon. So that was nice. But yeah, no, heading out of the game, we had this one up on the phone and we're all watching it and huddled around a phone to see what was going on, and it was just wave after wave after wave of Melbourne attack, and the Broncos just didn't let them in. Now I don't know how you credit that. Do you credit that as poor attack from Melbourne, or do you credit that as great defence from Brisbane? Because you look at Suafai-Longo, for example, and he has nearly 300 running metres in that game, but he has one try to credit for it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, to be honest. You thought Melbourne were in control of this game, and Brisbane didn't even win a single stat on the stats. Melbourne won all the stats, but Brisbane
Besides the final score.
Yeah, but Brisbane won the
Stat.
Yeah, Brisbane won the game. So, yeah, maybe it was just that confidence that they have done that in the past, come back from behind and won. I mean, they did that in the grand final as well. So, maybe that's a little bit of a confidence thing when they're playing the Storm now, that they know that they can do that. But that's certainly not the way that they want to play football. They obviously want to lead from the front. And I think someone told me a stat the other day that there's 89% of the time when a team goes into half-time 14-0 up, they end up losing the game. So that certainly continued on into this game. So
Really? Wow.
yeah, so you don't want to get 14-0 in front at half-time. If there's a penalty...
That's an interesting one, that. I like that.
Yeah, so if there's a penalty for the opposition, let them take the two. Yeah, because more than likely you'll lose the game. But look, the Storm, I wouldn't want to be playing them this week because, as we know, they don't tend to lose 2 games in a row too often, if ever. But the Broncos, that'll give them confidence, that's for sure. And look, the Broncos, they were certainly in the news all week. Certainly with Gordon Tallis and Adam Reynolds and Madge Maguire as well, even off field as well. But look, they were in the news and they hadn't won there down there for 10 years, but it obviously didn't worry them. So they got the job done. So well done to the Broncos. They got their first win of the game. And we'll go to the games next week, but they got a big one next week. So that will be a crackerjack of a game. That will be a full house, that's for sure. Super Saturday. Well, was it a Super Saturday? I don't know. But it was Newcastle up against the Warriors, both undefeated teams. Newcastle going into the game under strength, though, with obviously Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown out of this game. It was late in the week as well that Fletcher Sharp was ruled out of this game as well. So they were going into this game without three of their superstar players. The Warriors, they travelled away from home for the first time, but Tanner Boyd, he really took control of this game, and it's going to be very hard to leave him out of this Warriors side when Luke Metcalf comes back.
Yeah, 100%. Now, we all thought, and we were all wrong, we all thought that the Warriors were going to sort of drop down the pecking order a little bit with Metcalf being out. And it seems like they have just continued to roll, continued to fire, continued this absolutely incredible start to the season that they've had, and they've been under strength pretty much throughout the entirety of this season so far. They've had one or two massive name players for their squad out pretty much every game, and have continued to back it up, continued to show up, and continued to pile points on teams. Now, I think we all sort of expected this from the Knights. We expected them to eventually sort of slide. They've had a great start to the season, but they're probably not the team that they sort of looked like they were starting this season over the first two rounds. Now, we don't know what they're going to look like once they get back to full strength again, but it is going to be a little while until they do get back to full strength. But I definitely think this is going to be the start of a slide for Newcastle, unfortunately for Knights fans out there. I don't think they quite have the depth to cover the positions that they've lost at the moment.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's hard to put that as an excuse, but it's pretty much sort of reality, to be honest. Two massive names out, and Fletcher Sharp, who is one of their bright up-and-comers. It's very, very tough. They have to go to another halves combination as well. So, look, it was possession as well that really killed them as well. 56% to the Warriors, 44 to the Knights. And look, again, it was the completion rates of the Knights, 63%. So they didn't hold the ball as long as the Warriors did, and the Warriors took advantage of that. James Fisher-Harris, he got over the line for a front rowers try, which he'll be happy about. I'm not too sure when the last one he scored was, but no doubt he's happy about this one. And the Warriors, they just march on, third win in a row, and this one on the road. They won 38 points to 18 38 points to 12 against the Knights there. This next game was a disappointing one for me, and it was disappointing for me because I tipped the Sharks to beat the Dolphins. But the Dolphins they hold the advantage over the Sharks, so I don't know why I tipped the Sharks. But anyway, I thought they would have been disappointed about their loss against the Panthers the week before. And I said going into this game, these are the games that the Sharks need to win to potentially get in the top four. These are the games that the Dolphins need to win to make the top eight. And win they did, 38 points to 10. It was a bit of a slow old affair at the start of the game, but then once Jake Averillo scored, it slowly started to open up. And it was pretty competitive there for a little bit, but then the Dolphins just took over and it was 16-4 at halftime.
Yeah, now I decided coming into this match that I no longer trusted the Dolphins, and I also put my tip on the Sharks for this one. So that was great for me. I have decided following this game that I no longer trust the Sharks and I trust the Dolphins again. So we'll see if that flip-flops again next week.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a theme of these two teams' seasons. I think they're going to flip-flop around. They're going to look great one week, they're going to look terrible the next. So that seems to sort of be who they have been over the last couple of years anyway. I would have thought maybe with that, and I speak about it every week with the Dolphins, I would have thought with that attacking season they had last year that they would have put a bit more emphasis on fixing up their defense and getting that right. But this week they seem to sort of have that firing. Like you said, it was a very competitive game. The scoreline doesn't do the justice for what we actually saw on the field. But I think what we saw on the field was a little bit more of poor defense from both sides, but the Dolphins managed to just hold them up over the line each time. So the Sharks actually did spend quite a bit of time down in the Dolphins' end. They just couldn't sort of put a finishing touch on, which was also true of the Penrith game last week as well. They actually weren't that far out of that Penrith game, but they couldn't seem to just finish a try. So is that who the Sharks are now? Are they a team that has great attack but can't seem to sort of get over the line and finish it off, or are we seeing a team that needs to revamp their attack?
Well, when Braden Trindle scored after half time, I thought that will give them confidence and that will try and get them back into the game. But I'm not too sure. I mean, as I said, this is a game that the Sharks needed to win just to stay in that top 8, and they probably maybe would have penciled this game, circled this game as a win. I mean, I know you can't do that in the NRL because every game's hard, but they would have circled this game as a potential win, I'm sure, being at home in front of their home crowd, 11,096. But they just couldn't get the job done. But Isaiah Katoa, what a ball that was. Left to right, I think it was, mind you, which isn't the strong point, the strong pass from, I guess, most people, but that one, he put it on a dime for Jermaine Asako. That was an absolute gem of a. That was, you think, probably a bit before your time, but you think of Wally Lewis with his big passes out wide, you think of Ricky Stewart with his big passes out wide like that, but this one was left to right, and that is very hard to do.
Yeah, look, I am a big fan of Isaiah Katoa, and I'm a big fan of Jermaine Asako. So this try really tickled me in all the right places, that's for sure. But look, I've backed this Katoa kid since he left Penrith, and I think he's probably one of the next superstars of the NRL, along with the half over there at the Warriors as well. I think those two guys really have a great career ahead of them, and I think once we see their peak, we're going to see those two guys potentially battling it out for premierships as well. So I think Katoa's already got a couple under his belt from his Penrith time, but I don't know if he'll count it as much as he would if he gets one with the Dolphins. But look, he is such a great player, and I'm so glad that we're finally starting to see these incredible plays out of Katoa as well, because he's got so much talent, he's got so much potential, and I look at something like that, and it's not something that you can teach. You can't teach a player how to do something like that. It's just a natural instinct. For him to throw the ball like that and just trust that Asako is going to be on the other end of it, it's such incredible trust and feel between two players that are sort of so far apart on the field. So I think that, I don't know where it ranks for you, but I think at least in my time watching rugby league, that ranks probably my top 3 greatest passes I've ever seen. That was absolutely phenomenal. There's not really anything you can say about it because it speaks for itself. But maybe we'll try to get some vision of that up on the socials, and we'll let everybody sort of decide where it ranks amongst their favourite passes. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. You can do that one. You can get all the passes together and I'll put it up. But just speaking of Jermaine Asako, I'd hate to be a Dolphins fan watching him goal kick, because there was a couple of kicks at goal. I think it was a couple of the penalties that the Dolphins got. And look, it looked like a straightforward kick. But the hook that he gets on the ball when he kicks, he kicked it, and I'm thinking, he's going to miss.
Level.
Eh?
It's next level, the way he kicks. It's so good.
Yeah, but it gives me, if I was a Dolphins fan, it gives me a heart attack, because it looks like a straightforward goal kick, but the hook he puts on it, it looks like, no, he's missed this, but it hooks around and it gets in between the posts. But No, he is a quality goal kicker, but as a Dolphins fan, it would just give me heart attacks, I reckon, watching him kick. Polytech Stadium up in Gosford was the next game, the Rabbitohs and the Tigers. The Rabbitohs, this was a home game for them as the Asian Cup final for the women. Was at Homebush in front of 80,000 people. Unfortunately, the Matildas went down to the Japanese, unfortunately 1-0 in that game, so we won't talk about that one. But...
Yeah, we're boycotting sushi this week because of that one. We're gonna keep our money for the Aussies and not give it to the Japanese.
Yeah, so well done to the Japanese, but well done to the Matildas for making the final as well, a huge effort. But that's why this game was played at Polytech Stadium in Gosford, and it's a really good crowd as well, 19,940. The Central Coast people, they love their rugby league up there. Usually every time you see a game played up there, it's usually a sellout, or very close to a sellout anyway. We saw that in the trial game, the Parramatta Eels up against the Roosters, when that was about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. But 4 tries to 2, 20 points to 16. Now, we saw a few things in this game. Some concerns for the Tigers. Jerome Luai went off with an injury. Adam Dewey went off with an injury. So that's both their halves combination gone for potentially a few weeks. I don't know the results of their injuries at the moment, but they will be out for a few weeks now. So that is a big blow for the Tigers to have your halves combination out with injury. But there was also an 8-point try in this game as well, and Alex Johnston, he added to his try tally as well. Had everything this game.
Yeah, it did, and it was a really great game to watch as well. It's always an entertaining affair when the Rabbitohs take on the Tigers. Now, this to me is a bit of a classic rivalry. I know a lot of people sort of rate the Roosters and Rabbitohs rivalry a bit higher, or even the Rabbitohs and Dragons rivalry a bit higher. But I actually quite rate this particular matchup as my favourite rivalry for the Rabbitohs, because they always seem to have a good game between them. So they're all great rivalries, don't get me wrong, but this is just my favourite one. Now, interesting thing about what you just said about the sort of the crowd number that we had there, that's actually over the stadium capacity. So they've managed to actually fill up the stadium and then find some extra seats for people. So that's quite interesting there. I think the stadium capacity is listed at 2,059. I don't know why it's not 2,060, but 20,059. Sorry, I should say.
I was about to say.
Yeah, sorry. But I don't know why they don't list it as 20,060. I don't know if somebody's just added an extra seat there and taken it away or something, but interesting nonetheless. But yeah, no, that's definitely a capacity crowd, and I think they've all sort of got their money's worth out of this one. So the scoreline looked a little bit closer than what it really was, due to a couple of penalty goals from the Tigers as well. So it looks like a 1-try game, but it's actually a 2-try game, this one. So interesting little thing there with goal kicks.
Well, 4 tries, four tries
as well.
4 tries to 2. It was Jai Gray. He got the first try, and look, a lot of people are saying, why didn't South Sydney put him at fullback mid last year instead of Latrell? Latrell's probably a better centre than a fullback, and Jai Gray, you can't leave him out of the team.
Yeah, look, I've always rated Latrell as a centre. I don't know why there's always been the conversation about whether or not he is a centre. I think it's pretty clear and cut that he's a centre. He's too big to sort of play on the wing. He's too big to play at fullback, and Jai Gray's too small to play anywhere else. So I think it's a natural, I guess, a natural decision there to do that. And I sort of agree with the people. I don't know why it's taken them so long to work out that that's where those two guys play their best footy.
Yeah, so I think they've made the right decision now, and I think this time, mid-year last year, I think Jai Gray was leading the Dally M's. So, he's continuing on his form there. And, as I said, the Tigers, they'll have to find a new halves combination for this week, but and moving forward as well. But, look, they won't be... obviously, they'll be disappointed losing the game, but they didn't get flogged. But they would have loved to have won it against South Sydney, their rivals, but... they still sit in, I think it's 5th position on the ladder, but we'll get to that later. Another.
Yeah, look, I think I think just to put an extra point on this one, I think the Rabbitohs were always going to win this game. They didn't want to come out of the Alex Johnson week after that loss. I think they were always going to turn around and put on a great performance and push hard for this win, especially in a rivalry game. So I don't think the Tigers can be too disappointed in this. They got it close. They kept it close. They didn't get blown out. It's kind of like we'll see a couple of matchups on next week's schedule that you sort of look at them and go, yeah, look, that's going to be a loss for the other team, but let's see how they play. So I wouldn't be too disappointed as a Tigers fan in this one. You sort of just take your hit in this one and you move on.
Yeah, and look, watching the game on Saturday night, I was thinking when Alex Johnston did score that try, I was thinking, well, I'm glad he got the record at Allianz last week because it just wouldn't have been the same at Gosford. um, but
It would have added a good bit of lore to that stadium, though. We've had some classic moments at Gosford over the years, haven't we?
well, yeah, Parramatta won the preseason challenge up there, which was great. So that's most
Maybe the
recently.
most
But
classic moment of all.
well, that's it. Well, speaking of Parramatta, that was the first game on Sunday in front of another great crowd, 25,573. 30 points to 20, the Eels got the job done, but it wasn't easy, smooth sailing for the Eels. They started off slow once again. The Dragons, they came out, scored the first. They scored well. Okay, let's get into the penalty try. Jonah Pezzett penalty try. What are your thoughts on that one? That one was not a penalty try, was it?
Look, I'm actually okay with it, to be honest. The rules of rugby league these days are that if you're close enough to assume that you would have gone over, then they're going to give it. I'm okay with it as long as they stay consistent with it. Now we did see a couple of penalty tries over the weekend, and they were all pretty consistent. So I'm actually okay with it. I think a lot of Dragons fans are upset about this one, but honestly, with the way that the momentum was rolling at the time, I think if they don't give that as a penalty try, and the Dragons end up having a player sent off the field for 10 minutes, I think that's a lot worse of a result for the Dragons by the time that 10 minutes is up, because all they've done there is they've conceded a try and then they've gotten back to business, which we'll see over the scoreboard there. They actually scored the next two tries after that, so it didn't actually affect them all that negatively. But I think if they had a 10-minute period there with a player off the field, with the way that they actually ended the half, they ended the half very very tired and very lethargic on the field. And I think if they had an extra 10 minutes of having to defend their try line, they're probably going to let in 2 or 3 tries there. So the way that they were playing at the time, it's probably a good result for them to not have the sin bin and to just give up the 6 points there.
Yeah, no, I disagree. I think even if Jonah Pezzett got the ball legally, I think he would have been tackled anyway. And
Well, look, the interesting thing about it was that the referee actually sent it up as a no try. So he sent it up and he said there's the potential here for a penalty try, and the bunkers actually found a reason to give it. So I actually thought the refereeing was quite one-sided towards the Dragons before that, so it was quite a surprise that we did get it awarded. But I'm actually not as upset about it as a lot of other people are.
yeah, well, I mean, even as a Para fan, I thought, yeah, it wasn't a penalty try, but it did go to us in the end. And look, we won't get too much into this because, as a reminder, we've got the Parramatta Dragons review podcast to come out as well, where we can go more in depth into that one. But Talon De Silva, he had a blinder of a game, 2 tries, one before halftime, one after halftime. I think the second one was a
Almost got a third as well.
yeah, I think the second one was a sneaky dive over from dummy half, so some good dummy half play there.
A little Harry Grant try.
Yeah, and Fox Addo-Carr, he got a length, well, not a length of the field, probably a 70-metre-ish try, 50-metre-ish try. Good to see him in full flight though. And he got the last try of the game to seal the win. A couple of bad injuries to come out of that game for Parramatta. Jordan Samrani, I'm not sure to the extent of his injury, whether it's an ankle or a knee. I have heard rumours that it could potentially be an ACL as well, but I'm not 100% sure. Just have to wait and see the reports from the club. But the major report going around town is that Jermaine Hopgood has done his ACL as well. So unfortunately, he'll be gone for the season. And potentially Sam Rani as well, gone for the season as well. So a couple of big injuries for Parramatta, which is never any good for a team. A couple of sin binnings in this game as well, 18-14 at half time. But the Eels held on in the end. As I said, we won't go in too much into that one. Tune into the review podcast for more detail of that one. Look, the last game of the...
There'll be plenty to say about that match as well, so I think it'll be a good one to tune into for those listening.
Oh, well, the Parramatta ones always are, so where we can really get into it rather than the quick little couple of minutes we talk about these other games. But the last game of the round was an all Queensland affair. It was the Cowboys taking on the Titans up at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Look, I don't understand why one more person couldn't turn up, because the attendance was 16,999, but one more person would have been nice to turn up to make that a nice even 17,000. But
it's interesting that you say that, because we were talking about our attendances on our Para Preview podcast last week, and we mentioned that it's never quite a perfect number of attendance, is it?
No.
It always seems to be a weird number.
Yeah, so why couldn't just one more person turn up? I don't know. But anyway, 5 tries to 3. The Cowboys got the job done. Scotty Drinkwater, he scored a great try. He was in everything. 22 points to 10 at half time. The Titans go down again. We saw them go down to the Dolphins last week. They showed a bit more fight in that game than this one, but... a little bit less pressure off coach Todd Payton for getting the victory in this one. What are your thoughts?
Do you want my good thoughts or my bad thoughts? Because there's a fair bit of both in this one. Look, Scott Drinkwater is a name. Is a man that his name has been floated around the rumour mill all of this week, been linked with an exit to quite a few teams. There's even been a link to our Parramatta Eels there that I've seen over the week. Now, no surprise that with his name all throughout the headlines, that he suddenly turns up and puts on a great performance. So potentially a man that might be shopping himself around. Now, I'm not a fan of when players suddenly turn up and start playing great in a contract season. That's always a sign of I guess a bit of a red flag for me with a player. So hopefully Scott's actually just showing up so he can win games for the Cowboys rather than to earn himself a nice big contract somewhere else. One thing I will say about both of these clubs, now, I think without Murray Talangi and Scott Drinkwater, the Cowboys would be a really, really bad team. Those two guys have made this team look even half decent this year. And the same thing can be said about Jaden Campbell on the Titans. Now, if the Titans didn't have Jaden Campbell, I don't even think they'd be a first-grade quality team at the moment, because they had a great preseason, but they've just not turned up and backed it up in the actual season, have they? Like, it's Jaden Campbell comes back and makes them look like a phenomenal team because he's a phenomenal player. And I kind of feel sorry for the kid. He's stuck in a situation down there at the Titans that he's not looking likely to get out of, because I think he's just re-signed on a long-term deal there. He was linked with an exit last season and linked to a couple of teams, and I would have even as a para executive, I would have even probably had a look in at Jaden Campbell as well. So he was linked there with an exit and ended up re-signing long-term with the Titans, and it looks like they've just gone backwards since he's done it. So I feel sorry for the kid, because he's got a great career ahead of him and a great future ahead of him. I don't know if the team is.
It was his first game of the year, coming back from injury, and he has signed a long.
He was brilliant.
And he has signed.
He was brilliant in this game.
He has signed a long-term deal, and with the Titans. So
I think Marcus Bai came out as well a couple of weeks ago. The same sort of knock on the Titans, because he's got his son there, and I think his son just re-signed with them long term, and he said, I would have much preferred it if he actually had left the Titans. So there's a lot going around with the Titans at the moment. I don't think they're in a good place.
Yeah, but I mean, it's only early on in the season. They do cop a lot of criticism, the Titans, and they do have a new coach, so they're still learning under Josh Hannay. Um,
Well, they've
and
got a new coach, they've got new ownership, they've got all the reasons to be successful at the moment.
yeah, but sometimes things just don't happen overnight. They do take time to happen, unfortunately. But it is a business. It is a results business, unfortunately, the NRL. But look, I think Josh Hannay's job's safe. He won't be going anywhere. But look, it's just one of those things that's just going to take time. The Gold Coast has always been a difficult spot for teams. We've seen that in other sports as well. AFL, soccer, rugby league. So
Well,
it is a
it's funny
tough
that you mentioned
market.
AFL. It's funny that you mentioned AFL because the Gold Coast are actually the best team in the AFL right now. So they're flying in the
But
AFL.
but again, it's only 3 weeks into the competition, so
Mm.
anything can happen from now until September. So, um, look, it's yeah, hard times at the moment for the Gold Coast. But look, the Cowboys, they got a win, a much needed win, their first win of the year. As we go to the ladder after round three, and it is the Warriors sitting on top, 3 from 3. The Panthers, second 3 from 3 as well. The Bulldogs, Storm round out your top four. As I mentioned before, the West Tigers are in fifth spot on the ladder, courtesy of one bye and one win. Then the Dolphins, Rabbitohs, Knights. And then our Parramatta Eels are in ninth spot. So we've jumped up, I think it's 3 spots over the weekend, which is great news. 10th, the Sharks, Sea Eagles, Cowboys, Broncos, Raiders. They've suddenly dropped way down. Roosters, Dragons, and the Titans round out the ladder. The Dragons and Titans have not had a win this year, so they are still searching for their win of or their first win of the year. As we look to next week's games quickly, we'll just say what they are. Because obviously we'll do a preview of the NRL round 4 during the week as well. But DCE's homecoming to Manly, Sea Eagles and Roosters at Brookvale Oval. The Warriors at home again to the Tigers on Friday night. This was the blockbuster game that I hope it's going to be. I think there could be about 45,000 people there. It's the Battle of Brisbane. It's the Broncos and the Dolphins, the Bulldogs and the Knights, the Panthers and Eels, the Cowboys and Storm, the Raiders and Sharks, the Titans and Dragons, and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They have the bye this weekend. So just quickly, obviously the Panthers and the Panthers and Eels you're looking forward to as much as I am as well. But which other game are you looking forward to out of those ones?
Well, to be honest, having a look at all of these fixtures, besides Warriors and Tigers, which is one of those games that I alluded to earlier on, that you're probably going to expect to see a loss for the Tigers there, and potentially as well Cowboys versus Storm. I think the Storm are going to absolutely roll all over the Cowboys there. But every other matchup in that is actually a really good tight matchup. Now, you've got pretty much every situation that we look at here. Manly versus Roosters, for example, two teams absolutely desperate for a win. Two teams that haven't started the season the way they wanted to. They'll probably be, both of these sides will probably be circling this on the calendar and saying we must win this game if we're going to get our season back on track. Like you say, in the early doors as well. But these are the ones like we spoke about, that you need to win. So Broncos and Dolphins will be thinking the same. There's a great opportunity for both sides there to get their season back on track as well. Bulldogs and Knights as well. Now Bulldogs, I think, are a little bit of an imposter at the top end of the ladder at the moment. I think they're going to sort of need to prove a point against the Knights here and finally put some points on. You've got Panthers and Eels. That's always a danger game for the Panthers. You probably expect the Panthers to win that one, considering we've got a bit of injury concern now as well. But always a danger game for Penrith. Para always show up and Penrith bring the best out of us, even at the worst of times. You've got Raiders and Sharks, another two teams desperate for a win. And Titans and Dragons, when are they maybe going to get a chance to get their first win?
Well, one of them will hopefully on the weekend. So that's the games for next week. So you're looking forward to a lot of them. We don't have to do the
Yeah,
preview.
pretty much. It's
Well,
a
we
quick
don't have
round of
to.
footy.
Well, we don't have to do the preview podcast now. We've pretty much you've just done it, but no, that's okay. We'll do one. It will come out during later the week as well, before Thursday, before kickoff of the round 4 action. But Ben, thank you very much for joining me once again on the podcast for the NRL round review, round number 3.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And as I just alluded to, looking forward to a very good week of footy coming up now. So everybody lock in. It's going to be a great game against Penrith this week. Let's get out there and get some numbers into. I don't want to say enemy territory because it's really going to be a home game for us. So let's get out there and paint the place blue and gold.
That's right. Paradise is ours. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for listening to another episode